All right, so Wisconsin Republican Senator Ron Johnson just gave us an absolute banger of an insight in terms of how absolutely deranged conservative economic policy proposals are right now, and also kind of a reminder in terms of if we had a much more competent Democratic Party, how easy it would be for them to destroy these Republicans because of how widely unpopular a lot of their policy proposals are. But here from Common Dreams, Jake Johnson, he says Social Security enemy Ron Johnson endorses a plan to coax retirees back to work. So what are they talking about here? They say Republican Senator Ron Johnson this week endorsed a proposal to coax seniors out of retirement to address the so-called worker shortages, drawing backlash from his Democratic opponent and other critics who noted the GOP lawmakers' long history of attacking Social Security. So here's what he said. There are a number of innovative ideas that I would support. Okay, he's calling this innovative. And he says, former Senator Phil Gramm came to the Senate. We were talking about our labor shortage, and one of his suggestions was to coax seniors that could re-enter the workforce. Don't charge them payroll tax. They're not paying it anyway, so if they want to get back and earn a few extra bucks, let them start working. So just absolutely amazing that he would come out and publicly say this, given the fact that we know the polling data on this here from AARP. They show at least over 90% support among Democrats, Republicans, and independents, according to their survey of like 1,400 people that were 18 years and older. So, I mean, this is just one of the most unpopular policy proposals that you could possibly imagine. We're talking about less than 10% of the country. Some polls show even less than 5% of the country that would be in favor of something like this, or gutting Social Security as this motherfucker wants to do. So, I mean, again, just kind of a reminder in terms of like, if you had a semi-competent Democratic Party that was aggressively pushing to do things like expand Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, and maybe do something radical here and provide universal health care by expanding Medicare to every single person in the country through a Medicare for all plan proposed by people like Bernie Sanders, then you would just absolutely be wiping the floor with all of these reactionary conservatives across the country who are openly proposing shit like this. I mean, it's just completely ridiculous. But they continue saying that the Republican senator's comments came weeks after he sparked outrage by suggesting that funding for Social Security and Medicare should be discretionary rather than mandatory, a change that would pave the way for cuts or the complete demise of the popular programs. And we had some pushback here from his challenger, Mandela Barnes, up in Wisconsin, who's running for the Senate seat against him. This guy's kind of interesting. He seems like he has some good policies. He seems like he's in favor of Medicare for all based on what I've seen. Got to do a little bit more research into this guy, but definitely seems like he is to the left of a significant portion of the Democratic Party. So that'll be a really interesting election to watch up in Wisconsin. But they say that Barnes, Wisconsin's lieutenant governor, was quick to respond to Johnson's latest remarks, slamming his opponent for waging a war on our seniors and the benefits that they've worked towards their entire lives. And he said Ron Johnson's solution to the labor shortage: send our seniors back to work. Barnes said in a statement on Thursday, noting that Johnson has voted to raise the retirement age of 65, or raise the retirement age from 65 to 70. Okay, so this is what Republicans want to do if they retake power. Okay, understand, I constantly come out here and I criticize Democrats, especially corporate Democrats, for being basically completely beholden to the capitalist class, their corporate donors who funnel money into their campaigns. But when it comes down to it, if you actually look at what Republicans want to do, especially on their economic proposals, this shit is just absolutely fucking insane. Okay, not only is it widely unpopular, but also it would be an absolute disaster for millions and millions of seniors across the country, millions of working class people who rely on programs like Medicare and Medicaid. So, I mean, like, the idea that you are going to push to raise the retirement age to from 65 to 70, forcing people to work up until they're 70 years old before they get Social Security benefits. The idea that you're going to make this a discretionary piece of the budget so that you can later justify slashing spending on all of these social welfare programs, it's completely fucking insane. And again, obviously widely unpopular across the country. But he's not the only Republican who has been proposing shit like this. We also had the head of the RNSC, the Republican National Senatorial Committee, who's basically in charge of running the campaigns of a lot of these senators in the Republican Party across the country. And this motherfucker, Rick Scott from Florida, apparently dropped his recent proposal to basically increase taxes on the bottom half of the country in order to make up some of the deficit gaps within our budget right now. Okay, so they want to gut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. They want to increase the retirement age. They want to force seniors to have to go back to work. And on top of that, they want to increase taxes on the bottom half of the country. Okay, he's talking about increasing taxes on people who literally do not make enough in terms of income to qualify to pay income taxes. All right. So he wants to tax those people while simultaneously maintaining, for example, the Trump tax cuts back from 2017, where 83% of the benefits went to the top 10% of wealth and income earners in this country. I mean, just complete fucking bullshit. Again, it's, one thing to criticize corporate Democrats for being completely corrupted ghouls, but these motherfuckers are on an entirely different level here. Okay. They are so transparent with their corruption that it's absolutely mind-blowing. But that was just one of his policy proposals. Also, he wanted to sunset Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. So basically make it so that these programs automatically expire after about 5 years on a looped basis, so that Republicans would then be able to, again, justify gutting these programs as well. And this coming from the same motherfucker, Rick Scott, who was literally responsible for the single largest Medicare fraud in U.S. history at the time. So, I mean, listen, again, I have my many critiques of the Democratic Party. Obviously, I think that they are wildly incompetent, and Republicans coming out and openly stating that they're in favor of policies like this is another piece of evidence in favor of suggesting the incompetence of the Democratic Party, because these motherfuckers should not be difficult to beat. Okay, the fact that we have polling data right now showing that Republicans are likely going to retake the House, that maybe Democrats might hold on to the Senate, they may, in a dream scenario, pick off a couple of Senate seats and hold on to their majority there. The fact that these elections are even remotely close when you have Republicans openly coming out and waging a war against the most popular and urgently needed policies in the country that benefit millions and millions of Americans. I mean, this should be the easiest race that you could possibly imagine from the perspective of Democrats. But in order for it to be easy for them, they would have to do something radical and buck the influence of a lot of their corporate donors within the capitalist class and actually just deliver materially on benefits for average working class people. And you saw this recently with Joe Biden doing his watered down student debt forgiveness plan of like $10,000 to $20,000 in student debt, depending on if you're a Pell Grant recipient or not. You see an uptick in his support, especially among young people, especially among his base of supporters within the Democratic Party. And this is why Joe Biden's approval rating has been slightly upticking, right? I talked about this before towards the beginning of his administration, after it started to significantly tank down when, Democratic policy was stalling out with Build Back Better, etc. But the peak of his approval rating during his administration was just a couple weeks after he sent out the stimulus checks and dramatically decreased poverty in the United States, even though they were watered down and they weren't as much as Democrats initially promised, etc. That was when he was at his peak approval rating. And similarly, now that you've had a small string of, somewhat watered down and kind of honestly pathetic pieces of legislation that Democrats have managed to get passed with the the bipartisan infrastructure framework and the Inflation Reduction Act and now student debt cancellation, etc. All of those things, even though they are watered down and engage with pointless austerity and conservative framing on a lot of these policy issues, even that was enough to pretty dramatically increase the Democratic Party's standing with the American people and Joe Biden's standing as well. So, I mean, the lesson could not be obvious, could not be more obvious. You have to challenge these Republican senators face on and expose the fact that they are openly running on policies like this. You can't just run, like Biden seems like he wants to be doing right now, a campaign for the midterms solely focused on Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans and not really talking about the policies here. I mean, if you just went out and explained to working class people that they want to strip away Medicare, they want to strip away Medicaid, they want to, for seniors, strip away Social Security benefits, force you to work until you're like barely almost on your deathbed, right? If you were selling that type of an economic argument to the American people, then that would dramatically do more, right? As well as obviously passing popular policies. You could have fought more ferociously for Build Back Better. You could have fought more for the $15 minimum wage. You could have done so many more things that would have actually materially benefited for working class Americans. But we're still left with a situation where it's like damn near neck and neck in terms of what the outcomes in the 2022 midterm elections are going to be when you have Republicans coming out here and just making the dumbest possible arguments that you could imagine, right? And this is why, Mitch McConnell was coming back and pushing against Rick Scott's plan. He outlined this like 12-point plan on his website that involved, the policies that we just talked about, as well as a bunch of other virtue signaling bullshit policies that he was putting on his website. And Mitch McConnell basically just said, hey man, shut the fuck up. We're not running on any policies because our policy agenda is wildly unpopular. We're just going to run an anti-Biden campaign. But you still have motherfuckers like Ron Johnson and dudes like Rick Scott still coming out and fully admitting that their policy agenda is wildly unpopular and would have disastrous outcomes for the American people. people. So, I mean, if I'm the Democratic Party, you have to double down on this. You have to go and expose them, and not only do that and critique their austerity that they're trying to push on average working class people and seniors in this country, but you have to go beyond that and actually try to aggressively lobby for expansions of these programs and lobby for things that, again, would materially improve the lives of working class Americans. And then these elections would not even be remotely close.